Assessing student learning. We're not going to say a huge amount about assessment in this session, but I did want to touch on a couple things. First off, if you think about summative assessment, that is not all that different in a synchronous online classroom than it is in a face-to-face classroom. You can use many of the same tools, quizzes, tests, surveys, discussion boards, pre-post measurements, as well as various kinds of assignments. You can do many of the same summative assessments that you would do in a face-to-face classroom, so we're not going to say a whole lot about that. I think the place where the synchronous classroom can be very different, and honestly, in some ways, the synchronous classroom can have some advantages over the face-to-face classroom, is when you're thinking about formative assessment. When you're looking at formative assessment, make use of the online tools that we have available to ourselves, both in whatever platform you're working on and outside of that on the internet. There's lots of ways and creative ways that people can give and solicit feedback. And again, not all of these are available on all platforms, but just to think about, certainly polls. Many platforms have poll questions that can either be yes, no, or A, B, C, D. And I'd encourage you to think about those the way you think about clicker questions. There's a lot of literature out there about really creative ways to use clicker questions for people to work in small pairs, to respond and ponder and then come back, see the class aggregate responses, and then come back and try to re-answer it. All sorts of ways to use clicker questions. Polls are a tool that essentially are a clicker question tool. Most polls, you can have everybody's individual response public, so they can look at the participant list and see how people are voting, or they can be hidden. And regardless of whether they're public or hidden, you can publish the responses afterwards in aggregate, so they can see what fraction of the class chose which choices. Many platforms have emoticons. Emoticons are great ways just to get a really quick reading of the class, and honestly to kind of shake things up a little and wake them up a little. So just to say, hey, is everybody with me? If you are, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Or was that clear, or do we need to spend more time on that? Smiley face or frown face. Often those emoticons will show up just for a moment, maybe 10 seconds, and then disappear. And it just gives you a chance to make sure people are back engaging with the material. And it also gives you a kind of a temperature reading of the room, which can be pretty hard to do when you don't have the body language cues that we do in the face-to-face classroom. Whiteboards can be very powerful tools for assessing student learning, asking all sorts of feedback questions, and it can be anything from getting a sense of what people's understanding of a concept was, to getting feedback about how the class is going or how they're feeling about a certain dynamic. If you don't have a whiteboard available in your platform, you can put a link in the chat that links to an external whiteboard, and they can go right to that whiteboard, like Padlet is a good one that we have used. You can also use almost any online tool that you like to use. You can link to that and use that, have them go to that in the synchronous classroom. So you can link and have them go to a survey, or have them go to a certain site, have them go do a 1-minute paper. You can also share the tool yourself in application sharing generally. So if you have a program that you particularly like, for instance, I love to do concept maps as a way to either get a sense of a pre-knowledge or post-knowledge. I have a concept map tool that I do. I can share that, and we can then build a concept map as a group. If you do have them go away to another site to do a 1-minute paper or to watch a YouTube video, one of the things I think that can be helpful is to put the timer on in the room. Most platforms have a timer and so you can say, this is a 5-minute YouTube video, and so we want you back in 6 minutes, and you set the timer. It helps so that they don't just kind of go off into the internet and not sure what to do at that point. It's very clear that there's a timer, they'll hear it ring, and that means they need to be back in the classroom. Again, if this was a face-to-face, I'd love to hear, or not a face-to-face, but synchronous with an audience, I'd love to hear what other tools people like to use for assessment, and think about how we might use those in the online classroom. That's the end of our section for assessing learning. As I said, it's fairly short, but the main takeaway is think about creative ways to get that formative feedback, whether it's just for a moment or whether it's in-depth. There's just lots and lots of tools for that in the online synchronous classroom.